Hello, this is Pat Rodwell from the MAID project talking to John Walker on Tuesday the 8th of March 2016, and we're talking about John's experience of working for Chances. So can we start, John, by you telling us what you did there?
Right. I was a technical apprentice. I started the first week in September in 1961 and started in the drawing office. After several months in the drawing office, I was then moved on to Chance Technical College, where I did pro-vocational training which helped me understand the use of machines, safety procedures and how to handle myself within a factory environment. At the end of this course, I then went back to Chances and I was assigned a department to go into. My memory's not wonderful, but I think the first department I went into was the fitters after I came back. And I worked with the fitters and a short time in the pipe fitters, learning various fitting skills and how to put bearings in, align bearings, align fans, all the sort of normal fitting jobs that came with working at Chances. After that, I moved to the mould department and was involved in cutting moulds. The mould I did cut was for the bulkhead fitting for the Royal Navy ships. I don't know how good a job it was because I never saw one pressed, but I spent months cutting this mould and hoped it went well. I then moved on to Avery's foundry and I spent some weeks there learning about the foundry process, smelting iron, casting iron, problems associated with casting iron, pattern making, the use of the new sand, which was Coravit, which you didn't have black sand, it was a solid sand that you put in and then you burnt the resins off around the moulding. I also worked in their fiberglass department and I did a little work in the work study department at Avery's. I then came back to Chances and if memory serves me right, I think I went into the boiler shop then and I learnt about heavy plating, rolling heavy plate, doing sheet metal work, doing repairs to guards and other ancillary work associated with the need of the factory. I also had one day when I went to Malvern to the glass syringe works and we measured up because, as you can imagine, with glass dust, guards don't last a great deal of time and they were being remade. And I went along just to see the production line and see what was happening there. After the boiler shop, I went into the bricklaying department, and in the bricklaying department, after 3 months, I was given my own team of bricklayers. And I would organise the work for the bricklayers on a furnace rebuild. I would have so many of Chances employees and so many subcontractors to control and organise the work rotas and other things. It was my first experience of handling men and I found it to be quite thrilling really that as a young man you could talk to these men and they would listen to you and do as you asked them. They may tell you you're making mistakes which you had to accept and then you'd have a little think and then reassign to a better pattern. But they were all really good guys to work with and they accepted that you were inexperienced and you were trying to improve. Mm-hmm. After the bricklayers I went into the work study department and there I quite enjoyed it in the work study department. It seemed to come very, very easily to me. Yeah. I could do most of the tasks, if not first time, second time, quite readily and quite easily. After the work study department, I went back to the drawing office for a short time and then I was put on furnace rebuild work, and I actually did the CPA programs, and I was the site safety officer for one of the major rebuilds when we went straight down to brick piers.
Can you tell us what a CPA program is?
Oh, the CPA program is a critical path analysis whereby you highlight problem areas with a rebuild. Such that if you suddenly find you've only got 6 weeks to get blocks and the delivery is 8 weeks, you've got a critical position. That's the sort of thing I'll be looking for. So anything that would come up that could, shall we say, bite us in the backside, I could take measures to ensure it didn't. And we kept to the rebuild program. So the 90-day program from cessation of glass production to new glass production would be met.
Right.
After the bricklayers and that, I really finished my time as an apprentice. So I then had to go and ask the departments I thought I might fit in if they would accept me. And I went to see the Chief Draftsman, John Hardy, and asked him, and he said yes. Mr. Barton at the Work Study Department also took a shine to me, and I went and explained that I would be going into the drawing office. So that's really the end of my training. After I did my training, the next move was you started to have a little more responsibility and were expected to perform more difficult tasks. This I carried on with. We did another furnace rebuild where I took a more proactive position. Again, I was using the CPA, and I had Jim Collins, who was the, shall we say, the man on site that looked after the furnace rebuilds, and I worked very closely with Jim on the rebuild. The rebuild I took, I can't remember which furnace it was, but that's how we went. Then, after that period of time, I went back into the drawing office, and I did work on the end formers for the Velo tube, where we formed the end of the glass tubes to make fluorescent lights. I did work on that and also the stacking of those. And then I moved on to R&D, and I was in the R&D department for a short time.
Is that research and development?
Research and development. I worked on stacking of micro glass when I was in R&D, and then I was co-opted back into the drawing office because I wanted to build a new brick chimney. So my job was to go and find the old drawings which were stored at the bottom of the lighthouse drawing office, and I had to pull the drawings out for the 1902 or 1906 stack that they built for CB4. I found them, and I was amazed that they were on cartridge paper, and they were all hand produced, hand coloured, and it looked like they'd drawn every brick. It was amazing. From then we finished the stack, and they started to build another furnace, which was an electric furnace, and that was an electric melt furnace, which was a complete new innovation at Chance's. I don't think it was a great success, because they all fired. They went well, we knew what we were doing, but this was new, and it was to produce glass for the Velo, and you could produce higher lead content glass apparently with this furnace, but I'm never sure if it worked properly. There always seemed to be a lot of problems and a lot of anxiety around the furnace.
What was the atmosphere like at Chance's to work?
Well, when I started, you start at a factory, you're a very timid person. You look around and all these people around you, they have vast depths of knowledge and years of experience, so you feel very inferior. But they soon take you under their wing and you become like a son to some of the men, and they look after you. They make sure you don't get into harm's way, you don't get into any abusive or nasty situations. You are very, very well protected and looked after. Mm-hmm. And they will tell you anything you ask, they will answer. Anything. You can ask something that's stupid, I'll tell you it's stupid, but I'll still give you an answer. And they were wonderful men to work with. They spent endless hours explaining things to me. And I suppose all the other apprentices had exactly the same from these men. They liked to impart their knowledge, and they liked to think you would carry on in years to come.
And how about the social activities or the sporting activities at Chances?
I did play football at Chances until I had a back injury, then I had to stop. I used to play snooker in the recreation club. The recreation club was great because every week there was a dance. And we could go and have a dance, and we'd look around at all the girls, and we would all be left there at the end of the night by ourselves again. But we used to keep going in hope, and I did meet my wife there, and we were married in 1966 while I was still working at Chances, and I don't regret a minute of it. The recreation club had a great atmosphere, and there was never any trouble or anything. It was just all friends having fun. Yeah. It was lovely. It was a lovely atmosphere. And we would occasionally go to TI down the road, to TI Ballroom, and again there it was a good atmosphere. Because you were a local firm, you blended in well, everybody had the same accent, so nobody worried. Now, the products that they made while I was at Chances, if I start at the Velo, which is the blown and pressed, we made glass rod, small glass hollow tube, glass tubing for fluorescent lights. We pressed lenses for cars, we pressed lenses for rangefinders, we pressed blockwork for building the glass blocks you see in buildings, we pressed those. We also made Proflit, which was a structural glass channel reinforced with steel rod. Well, with steel wire, not rod. Mm-hmm. So we made that, and that was completely engineered while I was there from nothing to fruition when they were making it. I didn't work much on that because I was in other departments and doing various things, so I didn't get much opportunity to help on that. On CB 3 and 4, I did work on the automatic stacking of glass and the upender to upend it onto a pallet. I did quite a bit of work on that. I also did quite a bit of work on the micro furnace and the micro glass stacking. The other departments, I'm just trying to think now. So I've done the Velo. Mm-hmm. Lighthouse had finished. All the machines were dead and they looked in a very sorry state. And some had been taken out, some had been left. But while I was there in my first year, I think all the machinery was taken out of the lighthouse. So that was empty, apart from some drawings and a lot of old desks and chairs. We also had a room further up near the top car park, near the Albury Road, where we had a balancing system for MTB prop shafts, which were balanced to, from memory, 1/4 of an ounce at maximum speed.
And is that for aircraft?
No, this is for the Royal Navy motor torpedo boats.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So that was something that I could watch, but I couldn't participate with because I didn't have sufficient skills. We went, if you walked from the Velo, you would then walk down over the canal, over the railway, and then you'd be in the area of the 7-storey. 7-storey was really an office block when I was there, in storage area. The Fiesta glass, which was printed glassware, was all moved into there, stacked and boxed and shipped out. We used to produce handkerchief bowls on a rotary furnace. We would place a glass square on the rotary, and as it went round, the arms were notched down and they gradually dropped down so they supported the edge of the glass, so you got a perfect shape for everyone as you desired it. There was a little kiln where the ashtrays were made. These were silkscreen printed and put in this little furnace, and they ran down. You fired the silk screening on, then the leopard at the end of it, annealed them so they were safe to use. I'm trying to think of any other products that were made while I was... Oh, the foghorns were still being made while I was there. The first one that sounded off made me jump out of my skin. I'd never heard anything so loud in my life. And it just seemed to reverberate all through the drawing office. I then asked how they tested them, and they said they sounded the foghorn. They then waited for the echo to bounce off Rowley Hill, and they had a reading so that they could see if it would travel required distance with this at the correct volume for the foghorn. I think that's about all I can think that they made at Chances at the time. I came at the end of the fiberglass campaign. As I started, the factory was full of fiberglass and the fiberglass plant had been closed down a few weeks. At college, I got an ONC in mechanics and electrics, and I went on to do a mechanical high national with a structural endorsement. And when I finished all of that, I had about 6 months just working as an engineer at Chances, an engineering draftsman at Chances, before I decided I would like to go and work somewhere else to gain more knowledge and experience. So I left at the end of 1968. The joy of working at Chances was the total protection you always had. And you knew if you had any problem, there was always someone who would help you. And it was a wonderful place to work. You were part of a huge family. There were 2,500 people that worked there. And we would help any one of them, and any one of them would help you. And I think that's about as much as my story as I can remember.
That's lovely, John.
Right.
Thank you very much for your memories. That's
Right.
excellent.